just going to jump right in, back into the story. I want to add all these together one day and make a continuous, however many hours it is, the entire story of the Bible. I don't have my pencil today. I think we'll use this instead. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau. In the land of Seir, the country of Edom, he instructed them, "This is what you are to say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says, I have been staying with Laban and have remained there until now. I have cattle and donkeys, sheep and goats, male and female servants. Now I am sending this message to my lord, that I may find favor in your eyes." When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper,' I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I have only my staff when I cross this Jordan. But now I have come to camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sands of the sea, which cannot be counted." He spent the night there, and from what he had with him, he selected a gift for his brother Esau: 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys, and 10 male donkeys. He put them in the care of his servants, each herd by itself, and said to his servant, "Go ahead of me and keep some space between the herds." He instructed the one in the lead, "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'Who do you belong to, and where are you going, and who owns all these animals in front of you?' then you are to say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and he is coming behind us.'" He also instructed the second, the third, and all the others who followed the herds. "You are to say the same thing to Esau when you meet him, and be sure to say, 'Your servant Jacob is coming behind us.' For he thought, 'I will pacify him with these gifts I am sending on ahead. Later, when I see him, perhaps he will receive me.' So Jacob's gift went on ahead of him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. his 2 female servants and his 11 sons and crossed the ford of the Jabbok, where he had sent them across the stream. He sent over all his possessions. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched, and he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, Israel, but Israel. Your name will be Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Jacob wrestled with God. He wrestled with God. And so his name was changed to Israel. Changed his name to Israel. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and 2 female servants. He put the female servants and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph in the rear. He himself went on ahead and bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the woman and the children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are my children. God has graciously given your servant." Then the female servants and their children approached and bowed down. Next to Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." "No, please," said Jacob. "If I have found favor in your eyes, accept this gift from me, for to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Now that you have received me favorably, please accept the presents that I was brought for you, for God has been gracious to me, and I have all I need." And because Jacob insisted, Esau accepted it. And Esau said, "Let us be on our way. I'll accompany you." Then God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." So Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you and purify yourselves and change your clothes. Then come and let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the days of my distress and who has been with me wherever I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods they had and rings in their ears, and Jacob buried them under an oak in Shechem. Then they set out, and the terror of God fell upon the towns all around them, so that no one pursued them. Jacob and all the people is Bethel in the land of Canaan, where he built an altar and called the place El Bethel, because it was there that God revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. After Jacob returned from Padan Aram, God appeared to him again and blessed him. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." Israel. So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac I give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." Then they moved on from Bethel. While they were still some distance from Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty. And as she was having great difficulty in childbirth, the midwife said to her, "Don't despair, for you have another son." As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Ben-Oni, but his father named him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard of it. Jacob came home to his father Isaac in Mamre near Kiriath Araba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had stayed. Isaac lived 180 years. Then he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, old and full of years, and his son Esau and Jacob buried him. God's story of promise and prosperity moves from Jacob to his son Joseph. Of Jacob's 12 sons, Joseph was clearly Jacob's favorite, leading the rest of Jacob's boys to resent their younger brother Jacob. Only heightened the family stress when he gave a beautiful coat to Joseph, and Joseph didn't help matters when he twice told his brothers that he had a dream that they would someday bow to him. Finally, the brothers had heard enough from their arrogant little brother, and they hatched a conspiracy. For 17-year-old Joseph, it would be a very bad day indeed. Jacob. These were the sons of Jacob, who was born to him in Padan Aram, the son of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin, the sons of Leah, Issachar, and Zebulun, the sons of Leah's servant, Zephath, Gad, and Asher, the sons of Rachel's servant, Bilhah, Dan, and Naphtali, the sons of Leah, Simon, Levi, Judah, Reuben, the firstborn. Joseph, from slave to deputy pharaoh. Now his brother had gone to graze said to Joseph, "As you know your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem, come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to him, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring word back to me." Then he sent him off from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph arrived at Shechem, a man found him wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I am looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. I heard them say, 'Let's go to Dathan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dathan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said to each other. "Here comes the dreamer. Come." "Now let us kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that the ferocious animals devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, an ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brother agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up from out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?" When they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat and dipped it in the robe in the blood. They took the ornate robe back to their father and said, "We have found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." He recognized it. "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on his sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All of his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave," for his father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, brought him from the the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of the Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in the eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care. With Joseph in charge, he did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, "My master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns has entrusted in my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and a sin against God?" And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her and even to be with her. One day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak with her and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had ran out of the house, she called for her household servants. She said to them, "This Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed when he heard me scream for help. He left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told him the story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me, but as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was there in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Joseph's administrative skills surfaced both in the house of the Egyptian master and in jail. Joseph also cultivated another talent when confined in Pharaoh's stinking prison. God gifted him with the unusual ability to discern the meaning of dreams. Once during his confinement, Joseph helped two of the Pharaoh's civil servants interpret their dreams. When Pharaoh's dream life took a bizarre turn, Joseph was summoned to the royal court. When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. In the morning, his mind was troubled, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he quickly brought from the dungeon and changed his clothes, he became before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. Pharaoh explained his two dreams this way. 7 beautiful fat cows emerged from the Nile, only to be eaten by 7 ugly skinny cows. Then 7 savory heads of grain on a single stalk are swallowed up by 7 dried up worthless heads. What do you make of that? Pharaoh asked Joseph. Giving credit to God for this gift of interpretation, Joseph told Pharaoh that the twin dreams foretold 7 years of crops to be followed by 7 years of dried up fields and famine. God planned it this way, Joseph said, so there could be no doubt it would happen. Joseph's recommendation to Pharaoh was to put a wise man in charge of storing food and preparing for the coming famine. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to your throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, Make way! Thus he had put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. The Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, but without your word no one can lift a hand or foot in all of Egypt. Sure enough, for 7 wonderful years, Egyptian farmers could hardly believe how full their harvests were. Farms yielded enough for the people to eat well and still store up for the coming bad times. Joseph knew another kind of fruitlessness during this time. His wife had 2 sons. He gave them names, Manasseh and Ephraim. Then, as Joseph had predicted, the blue skies over Egypt became hot and parched. The crops were withered, but Joseph had already planned ahead and stored a sufficient supply of food to keep the Egyptians healthy and Pharaoh's foreign trade business even healthier. Even though weather patterns fit into God's bigger plan, because the drought was so severe, neighboring nations began to approach Egypt for help just to stay alive and just look who shows up. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, Why do you just keep looking at each other? He continued, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die. Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others because he was afraid that harm might come to him. was the governor of the land, the persons who sold grain to all his people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. When he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected." "No, my lord," they answered, "your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." "No," he said to them, "you have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man, who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." Joseph said to them, "It is just as I told you. You are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother, and the rest of you will be kept in prison, so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you are not, then, as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." And he put them all in custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you will live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison, while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving household. But you must bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words may be verified, that you may not die." This they proceeded to do. So they said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded for us for his life, and we would not listen. This is why this distress has come on us." Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must have an accounting for his blood." They did not realize that Joseph could understand them, since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then came back and spoke to them again. He had Simon taken from them and bound before their eyes. Joseph developed a deceitful plan. He imprisoned one of his brothers, Simon, as a supposed hostage until his absent younger brother Benjamin could appear in Egypt. He secretly returned the money used to purchase their grain to the brothers' bags. He kept his own identity from them by using a second language, all the while hearing perfectly well their own expressed fears. These 10 brothers were desperately confused, but Father Jacob wasn't confused at all. When the 10 sons told him the terms of sale, Jacob wouldn't budge. No way would he surrender the young Benjamin to this Egyptian leader's examination, or even to the sorry band of sons who had allegedly lost Joseph to the wild beasts so many years before. It looked like a stalemate, stubborn souls refusing to confront their secret fears, until hunger and great persuader drove them towards compromise and compliance. Now the famine was still severe in the land, so when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." But Judah said to him, "The man warned us solemnly, 'You will not see my face again unless your brother is with you.'" Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be, then do this. Put some of the best produce in the land in your bag, and take them down as to the man as a gift, a little balm, a little honey, some spice, and mercy before the man, so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. So the men took the gifts and doubled the amount of silver, and Benjamin also they hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph came home, they presented him with the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground, and he asked them how they were, and then he said, "How is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living?" They replied, "Your servant. Our father is still alive and well." And they bowed down, prostrating themselves before him. As he looked about and saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, he asked, "Is this your youngest brother, the one you told me about?" And he said, "God be gracious to you, my son." Deeply moved by the sight of his brothers, Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. After he had washed his face, he came out, controlling himself, said, "Serve the food." I think we will end that there for today. So, as always, if I don't see you here, and I don't see you there,